What I'm about to tell you will make you question everyone you trust and prove that the most dangerous person in any room is the one everyone underestimates. 6 months ago, I discovered that while I was lying unconscious in a hospital bed, fighting for my life after a horrific car accident, the two people I loved most in this world, my husband and my own mother, weren't just having an affair behind my back. They were actively conspiring to steal everything I owned, have me declared mentally incompetent, and lock me away in a care facility so they could live happily ever after with my money. They thought I was broken, helpless, and too brain damaged to fight back. They were dead wrong. This is the story of how I went from victim to victor, and how I systematically destroyed two people who made the fatal mistake of betraying someone they thought was powerless. As we dive deeper, let us know in the comment where you're watching from. We would love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you will never miss our everyday stories. My name is Maya Chen, and before my world exploded, I thought I was living a dream life. I was 34 years old, running a luxury event planning business that I had built from nothing into a company worth over $2 million. My clients were celebrities, tech billionaires, and old money families who paid me 6 figures to create their perfect moments. I was married to David Martinez, a brilliant architect whose designs had been featured in every major home magazine. We lived in a stunning house that he had designed specifically for us, complete with panoramic city views and every luxury you could imagine. My relationship with my mother, Linda, was equally perfect. After my father died when I was 19, she and I had become inseparable. She wasn't just my mom, she was my best friend, my business advisor, and my emotional support system. She had helped me start my event planning company, often working events with me for free just to help me succeed. We talked multiple times every day, shared every detail of our lives, and she was at our house constantly for dinners, movie nights, and family celebrations. David used to joke that he had married both of us because my mom was such an integral part of our lives. October 12th started as one of the most successful days of my professional life. I had a meeting with a tech billionaire's daughter about planning her wedding, a $3 million budget with unlimited creative freedom and connections that would set my business up for decades. The meeting went perfectly. I landed the contract and was driving home through familiar streets, already planning how I'd celebrate with David and call my mother to share the incredible news that would change our lives forever. I was about 10 minutes from home, driving through an intersection I had passed through thousands of times, when my perfect life ended in an instant. A drunk driver in a massive pickup truck ran a red light at full speed and slammed directly into the driver's side of my car. The impact was so violent that witnesses later said they heard the crash from 6 blocks away. My car was crushed like a tin can, spun 3 complete rotations, and slammed into a concrete barrier. The drunk driver walked away with minor scratches. I wasn't so fortunate. I was airlifted to the regional trauma center with injuries that should have killed me instantly. Massive internal bleeding, a collapsed lung, 6 broken ribs, a shattered pelvis that would require multiple reconstructive surgeries, a compound fracture of my left leg, and most critically, a severe traumatic brain injury that caused dangerous swelling and put me in a medically induced coma. The doctors told David and my mother that the next 72 hours would determine whether I lived or died, and if I survived, I would likely have permanent cognitive damage, personality changes, or physical disabilities. During the 3 weeks I was unconscious, David and my mother became fixtures at the hospital, maintaining what everyone called the most devoted vigil the staff had ever witnessed. David immediately took indefinite leave from his architectural firm, telling his partners that nothing mattered except being there for me. My mother practically moved into my hospital room, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside my bed every single night and coordinating with nurses to ensure I received the absolute best care possible. They never left each other's side, took turns reading to me, played my favorite music, and refused to believe I might not wake up. When I finally regained consciousness after 3 weeks, the first thing I saw were David and my mother holding hands next to my bed, both crying with what appeared to be overwhelming relief and joy. They told me they had been talking to me constantly during the coma, that they had never lost hope, and that they would do whatever it took to help me recover completely. David kissed my forehead and whispered that he loved me more than life itself, and that we would get through this together, no matter how long it took. My mother stroked my hair and told me how incredibly proud she was of me for being such a fighter. My recovery was going to be a long, extremely difficult process that would test everyone involved. I couldn't walk without assistance, had severe memory problems and constant debilitating headaches from the brain injury, couldn't work or concentrate for more than a few minutes at a time, and needed help with basic activities like showering, getting dressed, and even eating. The doctor said it could take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years before I regained full independence, and there were absolutely no guarantees about how complete my recovery would ultimately be. David and my mother immediately reorganized their entire lives around my care, creating detailed schedules that ensured I was never alone and always had help available whenever I needed it. David became the most attentive, patient husband I could have ever imagined. Every single morning he would wake up early to help me shower and get dressed, a painful process that took over an hour because of my injuries and cognitive issues. He drove me to countless medical appointments, helped me with agonizing physical therapy exercises, and worked from home so he could be available whenever I needed assistance with anything. My mother complemented David's care perfectly, filling in every gap and providing support that went far beyond what anyone could reasonably expect. She cooked elaborate, nutritious meals to help me regain the weight I'd lost, organized my complex medication schedule with military precision, and provided emotional support during the dark moments when I felt overwhelmed by my limitations and frustrated with my slow progress. Together, they worked as a seamless team that anticipated my needs before I even realized I had them. During those first several weeks at home, I felt almost guilty about how much David and my mother were sacrificing for me. David had put his career on hold just as his firm was about to land the biggest contract in their history. My mother had essentially abandoned her own life and social activities to provide me with round-the-clock care. They never complained, never showed any sign of resentment about the enormous burden I had become, and they seemed genuinely happy to be helping me heal and recover. But around the 6th week of my recovery, I started noticing small details that made me increasingly uncomfortable, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why. David and my mother had developed an easy familiarity with each other that seemed to go well beyond what was necessary for coordinating my medical care. They would finish each other's sentences, share private jokes that I wasn't included in, and sometimes I would catch them looking at each other in ways that made my stomach twist with a vague sense of unease that I couldn't explain or rationalize. When I carefully mentioned these observations to David, he became slightly defensive and dismissive, explaining that he and my mother had naturally grown much closer because they were working together so intensively and constantly to take care of me. He said it was completely normal and actually healthy that they had bonded over their shared concern for my well-being, and that I shouldn't read anything troubling into their friendship. My mother gave almost identical explanations, but she went further, suggesting that my brain injury might be making me see things that weren't really there. I might have convinced myself that I was being paranoid and unreasonable if it weren't for the credit card statement that accidentally got mixed in with some magazines David brought me one afternoon. Since my accident, he had been handling absolutely all of our finances, bills, and mail, so I rarely saw any financial documents whatsoever. But this particular statement fell out of a magazine, and what I saw there made my blood run completely cold with shock and disbelief. There were charges for expensive restaurants that I had never been to in my life, a boutique hotel in our own city that made no sense, purchases from high-end lingerie stores where I had never shopped, jewelry from an exclusive store that had never given me anything, and multiple charges at a florist that David had never mentioned. All of these suspicious charges had occurred on dates when I was either unconscious in the hospital or attending physical therapy and medical appointments where David claimed he couldn't accompany me because he was running essential errands for my care. When I confronted David about these unexplained charges, his reaction was immediate, aggressive, and telling. He became angry and defensive, accusing me of not trusting him after everything he had sacrificed and given up for me. He claimed the restaurant charges were for meals he had grabbed while running errands related to my care. The hotel charge was for a work conference his firm had specifically asked him to attend, and the other purchases were surprises and gifts he was planning to give me when I was feeling better and could properly appreciate them. But something deep in my gut, some instinct that had nothing to do with my brain injury, told me not to accept these explanations and let this go. That night, lying next to David in our bed, listening to my mother moving around in the guest room she had claimed as her own, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of dismissing my suspicions as brain injury paranoia, I decided to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Over the following days and weeks, I became a careful, methodical detective in my own home. When David and my mother thought I was napping or doing my cognitive therapy exercises, I would quietly and carefully make my way around the house, looking for any evidence of what I suspected, but desperately hoped wasn't true. I started checking David's laptop whenever he left it unattended, going through his phone when he was in the shower, and paying extremely close attention to every single interaction between him and my mother. The breakthrough that shattered my world came when David carelessly left his email account logged in on his laptop one afternoon. What I found there didn't just break my heart, it completely destroyed my understanding of reality and the people I had trusted most in the world. There were hundreds upon hundreds of emails between David and my mother, dating back over 18 months, long before my accident had ever occurred. The emails revealed a relationship that had progressed from innocent conversations to an explicit, passionate affair. Reading through months and months of correspondence between my husband and my mother was like watching the most horrific movie ever made, starring the two people I loved most. They had been having an affair for over a year and a half. They discussed meeting at hotels when I was traveling for business, having sex in my mother's house when I thought she was running errands, and even being intimate in our own home when I was at client meetings or business events. The emails were graphic, passionate, and filled with declarations of love and excitement about their secret relationship. But the emails that truly destroyed me were the recent ones where they discussed their plans for my future. They weren't just having an affair. They were actively conspiring to steal everything I owned and completely destroy my life. David had been secretly meeting with divorce attorneys, discussing strategies for using my brain injury as grounds for claiming I was mentally unfit to manage my own affairs or make rational decisions. My mother had been researching care facilities, guardianship laws, and legal procedures for gaining complete control over someone's assets and medical decisions. The conspiracy went even deeper than I had imagined. My mother had been secretly communicating with some of my doctors and therapists, providing them with completely false information about my behavior, symptoms, and recovery progress. She had convinced several medical professionals that I was having violent outbursts, severe paranoid episodes, and showing signs of cognitive decline that went far beyond what my actual injuries warranted. Meanwhile, David had been systematically stealing from my business accounts, transferring money in small amounts that he thought I wouldn't notice in my impaired condition. That night, after reading email after email detailing their betrayal, their conspiracy against me, and their plans to destroy my life and steal everything I had worked for, I felt something break inside my chest that had nothing to do with my physical injuries. The rage that consumed me was unlike anything I had ever experienced in my life. But instead of confronting them immediately, instead of breaking down and demanding explanations, I made a cold, calculated decision. I was going to destroy them both, systematically and completely. The next morning, I began the most challenging and important acting performance of my entire life. I started playing the role of the perfect declining victim, confused, increasingly dependent, and gradually losing my mental faculties. I would ask the same questions repeatedly, forget conversations we had just had, and act disoriented about simple things like what day it was or where common household items were located. David and my mother bought the performance completely, exchanging concerned looks and discussing my deteriorating condition right in front of me. While maintaining this elaborate facade of mental decline, I secretly began building the most comprehensive case of fraud, adultery, elder abuse, and conspiracy that would completely destroy both of their lives. I installed hidden cameras throughout our house using security apps on my phone. I recorded every conversation I could capture. I hired a private investigator using funds from an old business account they didn't know existed. I consulted with the city's most ruthless divorce attorney and learned exactly how to protect my assets while ensuring their total destruction. After 2 months of careful evidence gathering, I set the final trap that would seal their fate forever. I started acting like my condition was deteriorating rapidly, becoming more confused and helpless than ever before. David and my mother became incredibly bold in their discussions about my future, talking openly about which care facility they were going to place me in and how they planned to divide my assets between themselves once they gained legal control over my life. The confrontation came on a Friday morning when I walked into our kitchen, carrying an envelope full of evidence, and said in a perfectly clear voice, "We need to discuss your future." The shock and terror on their faces when they realized I was completely lucid and had been recording everything was worth every moment of the elaborate performance I had maintained. Within 6 months, David had lost everything in our divorce, faced criminal charges, and couldn't find work after his professional licenses were suspended. My mother was facing elder abuse charges and had been completely ostracized from our entire family. Meanwhile, I had made a full recovery. My business was more successful than ever, and I had found real love with someone who saw my strength instead of trying to exploit my vulnerabilities. Sometimes the person who looks weakest is actually the most dangerous one in the room, and the best revenge is watching your enemies destroy themselves while you rise stronger than ever before. As we dive deeper, let us know in the comment where you're watching from. We would love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you will never miss our next story.